welcome back to Sunday Reads with Renee. My name is Renee, and I'm going to be taking you through a mini Jane Austen tribute this time. Before I do, though, I want to thank everyone who has watched and or subscribed to my videos. It truly helps my channel to grow, and I appreciate everybody. For those of you who are new here, I put out two videos a week, one on Sunday and one on Wednesday. My Sunday videos are mostly on reads of different topics, along with twice a month double book reviews. My Wednesdays are random things with my daily life, recipes, and more. And I look forward to the journey ahead. And I really appreciate everyone who watches, subscribes, likes, shares, comments, and just really enjoys my video. I truly appreciate it and helps my channel to grow. For this week's Sunday Reads with Renee, I'm going to be doing my mini tribute to Jane Austen, as I'm a huge fan of her work, and this year marks her 250th birthday, December 16th to be precise. And though it is a month to go, I decided to do my own mini tribute by ranking 6 of her completed published works here for this video. If you're a Jane Austen fan like me, you have consumed all things Jane Austen, no matter what they are. Her books, plays, poems, and adaptations, along with how her works and themes still resonate today, translating into modern projects and continuing to entertain and inspire. This year alone, I read a newly published work by Rebecca Romney called Jane Austen's Bookshelf. And this is a book, nonfiction work, that's really about the writers who inspired Jane Austen in her lifetime. And that includes Anne Radcliffe and Frances Burney. And it's a book I recommend for all your reading enjoyment, whether you're a Jane Austen fan or not. Going back to the ranking, I will be doing 6 published works by Jane Austen, and these are not going to include her unfinished works, poems, plays, or other things, even Lady Susan. Although that is considered a completed novel by Jane Austen, in my own opinion, I don't really think it is, though I might do a future video on it. And I'm just going to focus on the 6 works that you see here. And these are the only works I'm going to be ranking because, again, I don't really consider Lady Susan to be a completed work, despite the fact that some people do say so, though, again, I will probably do it in a future video. Before I begin the rankings, though, I want to let everyone know I will be revealing plot points, so therefore, spoilers are ahead. Now on to the rankings. Number 6 is Mansfield Park, and the reason I put this as my least favorite of Jane Austen's works is because while it is a very well-written work and I think is her most serious type of literature in her works, I didn't really gravitate too much. I didn't feel anything really for it. It does have some interesting characters in it, but they weren't really something I gravitated to or invested in a lot, where I felt like I could be invested in their stories. Fanny Price is an interesting character in her own right, but she doesn't really move me very much or make me invested in her story. And this is where it's all complicated for me on this end, because even though I think Mansfield Park is a well-written work and it does bring up questions about different types of topics for the Regency era at that time in 1814 when the book was published, I didn't really gravitate to it very much. And it does have a little bit of romance, it does have a little bit of development going along, but I think it actually failed to me, in my own opinion, because there were too many characters involved that weren't really making the entire story flow well or make it work. There is a lot of discussion on classism and differences, but there's also the fact that it does bring up some questions that didn't get as developed as they should have. And I'm curious to know if Austen would have focused on if it wasn't an 1814 type work, which is about the questions of religion and church, or even bringing up more topics on enslavement, as they do bring that question into focus. And I think there would be more of an interesting way of writing and analyzing this had she not passed away in 1817 at the age of 41, because from what many scholars have researched, it's led to assume that Austen was very much against enslavement and that she did not like it at all, and she leaned a lot more towards reading about abolitionist type work. And I would have liked to have seen more of that really explored in her future works had she not passed away in 1817. Other than that, I do like that she brought that question into this book, and I do think that there are other things to enjoy about Mansfield Park in some way, because I do think it is, again, a very well-written work, but I didn't really feel anything for Fanny Price, who is our heroine, and I didn't really like her romantic interest in either Henry Crawford or Edmund, and I just didn't really like this book very much. But I do recommend it if you're a hardcore Austen fan, and there are some people that do like it, so I recommend reading it if you're an Austen fan and coming up with your own conclusions. Number 5 is Northanger Abbey. And the reason I put this as number 5 is because while I do like it in some regards, there isn't a lot of complete development to it. I wasn't too invested in the characters except for Catherine Morland and Mr. Tilney. I thought they were a nice little pair, and I did like their personalities. I also like the fact that Catherine is very interested in Gothic novels. So this book is really, in my opinion, a tribute to Gothic novels, which are quite popular even today. And if you are like me and enjoy Gothic novels, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I did like the character of Catherine because even though she is a little bit more naive and a little bit too gravitated into the world of Gothic novels, it is very much relatable, I feel, because I think that at those points where I've been a little bit too immersed in such a good book that I kind of romanticize myself in the novel a little bit. If it's a Gothic romance and chivalry and everything like that. But sometimes you have to step out of that world to focus on reality at times. And I think all of us have been through that at one point in our lives. I know I have. And I did like Catherine because she does grow, mature. She stops being so immersed in the world of Gothic novels. And I did like her connection and romance with Mr. Tilney. So I do recommend Northanger Abbey because it is a little bit more on the lighter side of Jane Austen's work. So it's kind of a nice short read to get through, like Persuasion, but Northanger Abbey is a little bit more, in my opinion, the lighter side of Jane Austen's works, which you can really gravitate to. It even has a little bit of comedy in it. Number 4 is Sense and Sensibility, and this was Jane Austen's debut when published in 1811. Thus, it introduces us to the world of Jane Austen for the first time, and it is a very well written work that is very more, in my opinion, coming of age for its main characters, Eleanor and Marianne Dashwood. Now, this book tells the story of the sisters of Eleanor and Marianne Dashwood, who, along with their younger sister Margaret and their mother, face a challenge in the Regency era for a lot of women within the laws of the time. Now, in the Regency era, for anyone that knows it, the female heirs do not get access to a lot of things or a sizable inheritance unless they are able to marry off well, and the male heirs get everything because that's just the way the laws work in Regency era. And that's where the Dashwood sisters find themselves. Now, their father, who was sick, asked his oldest son, who is the older half brother of Marianne and Eleanor, to be sure that they get a good sizable amount of money, a part of the inheritance, so that way they can live comfortably as they have been for so many years. And the oldest son does agree to it, but he's got a wife who manages to manipulate him and tell him and convince him that this isn't the way. As such, Marianne, Eleanor, and their sister and mother end up living amongst meager means, but find a way to make it work. They find a cottage which is very nice and is comfortable for them, and they also manage to come of age, learn some things about themselves. And they even find some romance along the way. Eleanor falls in love with a man named Edward Ferris, and they end up really hitting it off and working out well, but unfortunately, some things happen where they can't really be together at that time. And then there is Marianne Dashwood, who is pursued by two men, Willoughby and Colonel Brandon. And Colonel Brandon is a very nice, well established, righteous man who's very friendly and lovely in personality. And Willoughby is also friendly at first, and he's also a little bit more ruggish type and handsome and closer to Marianne's age. So she does have those two suitors out for her heart. And some things happen there where there is experienced heartbreak as well. And I think what's great about this book is that you do see the sisters come of age and experience things for themselves and grow and develop into who they are. Marianne goes from being kind of naive and wistful to end up becoming a little bit more mature and going through her own personal growth and development, whereas Eleanor ends up remaining very sense calm and reality driven, but also finding her own heart and learning to speak her own mind. So even though Sense and Sensibility is number 4, I do like it and think it's a good debut for Jane Austen. Number 3 is Emma, and Emma is probably the most divisive of the novels within the Jane Austen universe, mainly because the character Emma Woodhouse is very divisive herself. Now, one of the things about Emma Woodhouse is that Jane Austen said this is a character that probably no one but me would like, and it's a character that I actually do like because I think she is the Jane Austen heroine that goes through the most development and evolution. She's the one who grows the most, evolves the most, and finds has her own way of going through a lot of character development that's needed amongst all of our heroines and heroes and any character we want in a book, pretty much. And the reason for that is because Emma starts out as this very spoiled, high society person who has good intentions, but she doesn't really know when to stop and say, oh, this isn't the way to go. And that's where a lot of the divisiveness, I think, comes from, because us as the readers can see that this isn't the path to go. And we're like, what are you doing, Emma? Why are you doing this? But this is why I like her too, because she's kind of lived in this privileged life where she has very little to worry about at all, because she is someone that is going to inherit a sizable fortune from her father, which is very much unheard of in the Regency era. And she's able to live her life very comfortably, that she doesn't have a sense of the reality outside of it. Nonetheless, she does learn to grow, develop, improve from her mistakes, and find her own path to where she has to be, including stopping herself from meddling into other people's lives. And she gets some of that help from the people around her, but especially Mr. Knightley, who's her neighbor and related to them in a sort of way, which I won't get into. But Mr. Knightley is someone who's a little bit older than Emma, and he does like Emma in his own way. He knows that she has a little human decency, but he gives her reality checks a lot. Well, she also gives him some. And they actually have a very nice relationship that starts from a friendship and evolves a little bit more as time goes by into something that is romantic and meaningful. And so I really like their relationship and how they connect. So even though Emma is the most divisive of all the Jane Austen novels, I personally like it because it's well written. It handles comedy satire very well. I think about also the character Emma, who I do like because, again, I see her as the most developed and evolved of all the characters, who goes through the most growth and learns how to behave a little bit better. And I just think it's a very well written book. So I do recommend it to people if you are looking for the personal journey growth in a Jane Austen novel. Emma is the one for you. Number two is Persuasion. And the reason why number two is Persuasion for me is because I do see Anne Elliot as the most mature of all the Jane Austen heroines, but also I think it is a work that really touches my heartstrings about regret, loss, and wishing you could do things differently. And the story was published posthumously when after a Jane Austen's passing, and it really is a great book. And the reason for that is because it really deals with a lot of more what I consider mature themes and a mature love story. Now, the story goes that Anne Elliot, at the age of 27, is a spinster old maid within the Regency era period, and she's looking back on her life on how 7 years prior she was persuaded to end her engagement to Captain Frederick Wentworth, who is now a captain, of course, and he is the one who was the love of her life and meant so much. But because he was very poor and ambitious, but not well established and from a wealthy family, the Elliot family, who are of a certain high society, wealthy stature, persuaded Anne to completely not be with this person anymore, break off the engagement, don't be with him, he's not the person for you. And Anne, being very young and thinking this was the right path to try and please her family at that time, she leaves him, and she's regretted it ever since, because now here she is 27, not married, no kids. Her once wealthy family is starting to lose a lot of money because they were big spenders. And as a result, Anne is now not in extreme poverty, but getting close to it and not sure where her future will go for someone in the Regency era. Now, one of the reasons why I like this book is because it does deal a lot with regrets, loss, and looking back and wondering if you had done some things differently. And some of us in the Austen universe do think of this more as a personal work for Jane Austen, who famously passed away in 1817 at the age of 41 from illness, where she had never married, never had kids, despite the fact that she wrote all these wonderful romance books, had opportunities to marry, but never did. And we see this more as her type of personal work for what the feelings she was going through at that time, because she was actually near poverty at the time this book was published in 1817. Now, what's interesting about Persuasion that I love too is that it does deal with a lot of relatable themes for me, because even though I have no regrets about no romance in my life, I do kind of look back and wonder, oh, what if I had made different choices? What if I had done things differently? Why did I wait till I was 36, 37, 38 to do these things when I could have done them 10, 15 years before? And this is kind of where Anne is at because she ends up crossing paths with Frederick Wentworth again, who is now a successful, wealthy naval captain, has achieved a lot of success. But it's clear when they meet again that they can never be as they once were. Too much has happened, they've gone through too many things, and Frederick has clearly never forgiven Anne, which hurts and breaks her heart, but she accepts it. She understands that we can't go back to the way things were. Too much has changed between us, and she accepts it, which I think is a very mature way to look at it and deal with it, because sometimes you can't go back to what it is as much as you may want to, because too much time has passed and too much has changed. But I really love this because it does deal with a lot of loss, regret, heartache, but it's really a meaningful novel that I enjoy. And Anne Elliot is a character that is very dignified and conducts herself in a dignified way, making her the most mature of the heroines and showing why she is a very enduring character in the Jane Austen universe. Last but not least is number one, which is Pride and Prejudice. Yes, I know this sounds a little strange to put Pride and Prejudice, given that it's the most famous and well known of Jane Austen's work, but for me personally, it is number one in my heart and always will be unless something happens down the road. But one of the reasons it is because this is her second novel published in 1813, and this is really the epitome of what a enemies to lovers tale should be in types of romance. And I absolutely love it because it has so many characters that drive everything there. But at the heart of it is also Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Darcy's romance, and how these are two people that make judgments on each other by first impression. And it sends off this whole thing about themes of pride and prejudice within the classist sense, just the classism sense. And it really drives a lot of things home, including a lot of character development and choices and decisions and how you mature and grow. So this is just a great book overall because it has so many of those wonderful themes that are still translated even today and are still very effective, because how many of us do make impressions by first meeting and glance, and they're the wrong ones entirely. But what I do love about this book is that even though there is romance at the heart of it, there's a lot of development. I like how Elizabeth Bennet is with her sister Jane, and they're close as sisters who realize the realities of their situation in the Regency era, where they need to marry men who are financially well off in order to live a good, prosperous life, especially when for their sisters, because they have a father who is very successful and they live a good life, but when he passes away, it's going to go to the next male heir in his family line, which is a distant cousin, because all they have is daughters. And as I mentioned earlier, daughters and girls in the Regency era were not really seen to inherit everything. And so as a result, everything went to the men. And that's why there's all this pressure in order to really get these girls married off to well off people who can financially provide for them, make everything work very well for them. They don't have to worry about living in extreme poverty. Now, what I do like about Elizabeth Bennet is that she does want to marry for love. So even though she's thinking about the money, she does want to marry for love and have a good prosper. She wants that for herself. And she's considered an unusual person, but is very well liked and respected within her community. She's got charm and wit. She's a headstrong person and also rather independent, which is what makes Mr. Darcy a little bit drawn to her, even though he has this kind of high air about him and a little snobbery, and he's not an extremely social person. And the reason for this is because he does have that kind of high air snobbery about him, but it is learned that there's more to him than meets the eye. He actually tries to be a good brother and a good friend, and he's a generous person, and he treats his staff very well at his estate Pemberley. So there's actually a lot more to him. He just has these flaws, just as Elizabeth has flaws as well, where she makes judgments too. And they really have to overcome these things in order to be together with other people, even going through their own growth or development, which makes them a very charming, enduring, romantic couple that I love so much even now. And I really just love this book. I think it does go through a lot of universal themes, and there's some twists to it, of course, and some challenges that are faced, but I really love it. It's enjoyable, it's fun, it has a moral lesson to it, and it's really a well-likable romance. And so Pride and Prejudice is number one for me and always will be, unless something changes down the road. I hope you enjoyed these rankings and the video. Now tell me what you think down in the comments below. Do you agree with any of these rankings? Where do you place any of Jane Austen's work in your own rankings? Do you think Lady Susan should be included? Do you think she should be kept separate? Do you like Jane Austen's works or not? Do you think that Mansfield Park should be number one? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you and welcome all discussions. I thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the notification bell. And I'll be sure to see you next time. Bye.